Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the newly rebranded, yes, a rebrand of the Mike Muldoon podcast. Now, I am so glad you can join me today. Now, let me explain to you what the rebrand was about. So, I got the feeling a lot of people thought shut up, get up meant that I was actually yelling at you. Like, shut up, get up, stop doing that. And I think we live in a time right now where people are sensitive. And I didn't want them to feel that way. Now, I know if you've been tuning in, you know the podcast is nothing like that. But I've had some people ask me, do you actually yell at people on your podcast? And that's not what it's about. Obviously, Shut Up, Get Up podcast was always just about shutting up those internal and external voices that might be holding you back, as well as, getting up and getting into action. But then I figured with everything else I have between the company and some other pages I have and branding items I've got, everything was Mike Muldoon. So my wife had the great idea. Why don't you just call it the Mike Muldoon podcast? So that's where we're at right now. This is the Mike Muldoon podcast going forward. You shouldn't have had to change anything. You can still find me on Apple, Spotify, everywhere else. You'll notice the new cover art. My wife designed it. Thank you, Emmeline. And anyway, the theme is still the same. I always believe that life is meant to be lived, not just something we passively exist in. We didn't come into this world to be, mere spectators, blindly going through the motions. And you know what, people, I'm seeing it. Time flies and life is short. So while we're here, it's important that we just make the most of it. And maybe listening into the Mike Muldoon podcast can help make things a little bit easier and maybe free up a little bit in certain challenges you might be having in your life to move forward and chase after some things or accomplish some goals that you have. Okay. Well, anyway, let's move on. I don't know about you all, but I find it absolutely mind-blowing the amount of TV shows, films, and entertainment options that are available to this days. I mean, every day. There's just tons and tons of it. Joe, I remember a time, and I'm probably dating myself here, where there were only like a handful of TV shows on a few networks, right? There was a new movie that was coming out every few weeks. And, but now with like streaming platforms, and then you got social media and all this like entertainment content coming at us. We can easily spend hours upon hours a day consuming content without even realizing it. We could blow days by us. You find a good show on Netflix and you could burn through that whole day. There are so many options, and in one way it's blessing. It's great. We've got all these different options for all these different tastes. But the other problem, this is a curse, because all of this stuff coming at us can easily lead to some type of procrastination and decreased productivity in areas where we should be focusing on things that we don't want to accomplish in our own lives. Look, I've talked about this in the past. I have an entertainment background, so I'm not against entertainment. And I love the fact there's so many great shows and movies coming out. But what I'm saying is we just can't use it as an excuse to not do other things. I've got some really good book recommendations. You can find a list of books on my website, MikeMuldoonLC.com. But there's one that I highly recommend, especially for my creative types. And it's called The War on Art. And it was written by a guy named Steven Pressfield. Now, it's a fantastic book that delves into these enemies that we face anytime we try to pursue our creative passions, right? When you kind of step outside your comfort zone, and then suddenly you've got self-doubt and fear, and of course, procrastination. See, because this enemy, right? These enemies, they thrive on our fears and insecurities, and they want to keep us in our comfort zones where we feel safe. Don't go outside of this and you won't have to deal with any of these fears. But the problem is when we don't, it prevents us from taking risks and embracing new challenges. So again, self-doubt, fear, and of course, procrastination can be dream killers. And in order to succeed, we just not only be aware of it, but we need to find the strength to focus through it. So today, I really want to just talk about procrastination. I'm guilty of it. I can tell you that I'm guilty of it. I mean, there are times where I'm like, oof, it's just easier to do this than do what I really have to get done. But again, today I'm going to talk about this one because even in The Art of War, it was one of the most common manifestations of resistance, right? Because procrastination is the easiest one for us to rationalize, to tell ourselves, because we're not telling ourselves we're not going to do something. We're just telling ourselves we're going to do it later. I'm going to start this business. I'm going to do all the research I need on it, but I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm not giving up on it, but I think I'm just going to sit here and watch these episodes of whatever it is. So it's the easiest one for us to rationalize because, again, we're not saying we're not doing it. We're just telling ourselves we're going to do it later. So why do we procrastinate? Why is it that we know that we need things to get done, but we still struggle to take action? And again, procrastination is something I think everybody has grappled with. Now, there's many different reasons why people procrastinate. Again, there's many different reasons, many different situations. I mean, obviously, for some people, procrastination can just be rooted in fear. Fear of failure. Why am I going to do this? Because what about if I fail? So I won't. Or even fear of success. I mean, this is a big one. You'd be surprised how many people don't have fear of failure. They actually have fear of success. See, fear of failure is what about if I do what I do and I don't get it? But what about if I do and I get it, but it's not what I thought it was going to be? So fear obviously is one that, can create procrastination in our lives. Are you fearful of it? And if so, how do we work through that? Sometimes procrastination can just come down to lack of motivation, because I believe that lack of motivation is often tied to the nature of the task itself. I mean, let's face it, some tasks aren't particularly enjoyable or rewarding, especially when things that we just got to get done. For example, cutting the grass might not bring us much satisfaction or a sense of accomplishment, unless you're me. I actually like cutting my grass. I'm a big fan of my grass. Anybody who knows me knows that. But for some, it's not that big. So they'll put it off till later. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next week. Now, if somebody came to you and said, hey, look, if you lose 20 pounds, you're going to get $1 million or a substantial sum of money. I bet most of us would be willing to put our Netflix subscriptions on hold for a few months and prioritize our health. And procrastination would be a little bit easier to overcome. Other people feel or procrastinate because they feel overwhelmed. They're worried about things being perfect. Are you one of these people where it's got to be perfect? I can't start until it's perfect. I've got to figure everything out. And if I can't figure it out, I'm not going to do it. And that's the other thing. Procrastination, I would say most people procrastinate on things is right here. They feel overwhelmed. Oh, there's just too much. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to start, so I'm not going to do anything. Or I've got to have this, but I don't have this, so I'm not going to do anything. When sometimes the only thing you need to do is just do something. But no matter what it is, procrastination does not magically disappear unless we just actively work to change it, until we figure out a way to manage, our world that is enshrouded with so many distractions. That might be putting down our phones, shutting off our TVs and our screens that hinder our productivity. Now, if you're like me, there are shows that I enjoy, but I have figured out a way to be productive while still getting my shows in. And we can talk about a little bit of that later. But what I want to talk about here is, in order to beat procrastination, we need to know what needs to be done. Now, there are 1,000 things that people can procrastinate on the daily, right? I mean, again, you can procrastinate taking out the trash. You can procrastinate cutting the grass. You can procrastinate calling somebody or whatever it might be. But today, because of my podcast, and I want people to think bigger, today I want to focus on things that you might be building or things that you really need to accomplish, that you really want to accomplish, but that you're putting off. And these things that are, could be things that enrich your life. So whatever you're putting off right now, whatever it is that you need to do, whatever you just decide, hey, I'm going to sit on the couch and do this, and I'm not going to go forward. Whatever that thing is, it's time to sit down and it's time to really figure out what it is and clearly define what it is that you want to achieve. Because once you have an idea of and now it might be like, I want to start a new business, which could be real big, or it could just be like, I want to write a novel, or anything in between it, but you got to figure out kind of what you want to do. Now, for most of you, if you're procrastinating doing this, you kind of have an idea what you want to do. You're just falling into one of those other categories we talked about: fear, lack of motivation, or feeling overwhelmed. And that's why you're not moving forward. So that's why the important part after this is you've really got to figure out a way to break down those steps, because ultimately it's going to take a series of steps to get to where you want to be. And if you can take that, whatever it is that you're trying to do, and break it down into a series of steps that you just kind of set up to accomplish on a daily or on a weekly schedule, then it's going to be easier to accomplish your goals. I see a lot of this with fitness people, people who are overweight. And suddenly, they go from doing nothing to tomorrow I'm going to start working out, 4 hours a day, every day. I'm going to run 3 miles. I'm going to do all this because they feel like that's how they're going to accomplish their goals. But after day one, they just decide not to. They decide to back off from going to the gym. They find other reasons why they can't go to the gym. In essence, their health and fitness regimen falls back into procrastination of I'll get it done later. Whereas instead of saying you're going to do all these crazy things, you might just start off with, this week I'm going to walk 20 minutes a day, and then gradually build on it. But that's for fitness and all that other stuff. But let's just say you're somebody who's trying to write a novel, and you want to write a novel on, the history of the British Empire, from years 1066 to 1966, right? My British friends will know those 2 dates are pretty important in British history, right? Now, you might feel overwhelmed. That's so much. There's so much research. There's so much stuff that's got to get done. There's so many pages. That's great. Okay, you have an idea what you want to do. But now you just got to figure out, it's not about accomplishing all today. It's what can I do today? So how many pages a day am I going to write? Am I writing 5 pages, 3 pages, 2 pages, whatever it is? See, by breaking it down, it makes it less insurmountable in your mind and easier to move forward, which makes it easier to break your habit of procrastination of, I'm not going to write today because I feel so overwhelmed. It's too much. You might even feel yourself going, oh God, I don't want to write. I really want to catch that. My wife's a big fan of Outlander. You might go, oh gosh, the new episode of Outlander's on today. And but if you just say, you know what, I only got to do 4 pages. I can do 4 pages. It's 1 hour. You know what? I'm going to go do it. It's going to make it easier to get up there because you have these small tasks in front of you. And then instead of having these gigantic tasks in your head, that is making it feel overwhelming. So by taking your stuff and simply breaking it down into smaller tasks, it's going to help you stay on track, break the pattern of procrastination that you might be having because, again, you're feeling overwhelmed or whatever it is, and sort of move forward. Maybe you want to do a business. I hear a lot of people want to start businesses, and say, oh God, how do I start a business? Can I do this? Can I do this? Depending on what the business is. I mean, if it's a sole proprietorship, I don't know. I just want to start my own lawn mowing business, my own this, whatever it is. There are steps that you can take. Well, let's figure out what are those steps. Well, I got to open up a business. So I got to file an LLC. I got to get an EIN number. I should open up a bank account. I'm going to do that. But these are little things you can do every day to start moving towards your business instead of just going, I want to start a business tomorrow and then feeling overwhelmed about it. So ultimately here, if you're somebody who is moving forward on an idea or a dream or something you have, and you feel that it's just easy to fall back into the couch and just pass the hours scrolling through your phone, then what you really need to do is figure out, how can I take what I'm trying to do and break it down into just small pieces that I can accomplish every day, so that when I know, oh, I don't want to do this today, but you remind yourself, look, it's only going to be an hour, or it's only going to be 40 minutes, only going to be 35 minutes. You're going to be able to, it's going to be easy to fight through that procrastination of not doing it to then get it done and actually do it. Now, there's a lot of other different habits that you can generate to fight through procrastination here. And for the sake of keeping my podcast, like I always say, keeping it short and to the point and to your commute, this is probably just one of the easiest ones to do. Break it down small, make it manageable with these, manageable bites to accomplish, but it'll keep moving you forward. And the more you keep moving forward and the more you develop a new habit of what you're doing now, right? Because every day you're doing it, or every week you've committed to doing it, or whatever it is, it's going to make it easier And you're going to need less motivation to do it because you're building upon something like my podcast. I'm a very busy person. I mean, I've got a lot of stuff going on. When I first started this podcast, I said, how am I going to do this? Like, how can I commit to doing a podcast every week? And the first couple of times, I started recording podcasts ahead of time because I was like, I don't think I'm going to keep up with this. Well, now I just, because I've developed such a good habit with it, it's no longer I've got to find a motivation for it. I enjoy doing it. So that's what this is going to do. It's going to allow you to take this habit that you're generating, right, by just taking on these small chunks of it all, and it's going to help you build on it, and it's going to help you sort of combat this feeling or this desire to procrastinate, to not get things done, and actually move you forward and motivate you to get things done. Does that make sense? I'm sorry. I know I talk and I get very passionate about things. Maybe that's why people think it is shut up, get up, because I actually do get very loud with things. But ultimately, again, let's not let procrastination slow you down from getting you to where you want to be, because life is short and time flies by. I mean, just sit down and watch your next show and, you'll watch a whole day go by. It might be a great show, but a whole day has just gone by. Talking about earlier, though, let me talk here real quick again. I'll make this fast. So for me, I like watching a lot of great shows. I'm a big fan of it. So what I do is I tie my shows into my workouts. Now, some people might argue with me and say, oh, well, you're not being 100% focused on your muscle group. Why are you doing? You know what? I need to work out with my new shows. So whether it's on my iPad or on my TV in my gym, whatever it is, it actually is a motivating factor for me, especially if I'm working out earlier in the morning. See, it would be very easy for me to be like, I don't want to go work out. But it's like, but I also want to watch my show. And you know what? That was a cliffhanger. I want to see what happens. So what I do, it motivates me to get out of bed, to get up in the morning, to go downstairs, half asleep, whatever, go to my gym and turn on the TV knowing that that show that I want to watch is going to be on there and it's going to get me through my workout. So again, there are certain habits that you might enjoy, like watching TV, watching movies, whatever it is, that you could tie into a productive habit like working out or whatever it is at that point. So again, I am not an anti-entertainment person at all. I love all the entertainment stuff coming out, but I just have to tie it into something productive so I feel like I continually moving forward. And if you're really struggling, if you're just like, man, I can't get out of it, well, find an accountability partner. Share your goals and your progress with your friends, colleagues, any family members, anybody who's going to hold you accountable. People are going to regularly check in with you and discuss your motivation and how you're getting things done. Because a lot of times if we tell people we're going to do something, we're going to be more apt to want to do it because now somebody's going to call us on it. All right, people, this is a long episode today, and I do apologize for that. But in short, if you got this far, do not let procrastination stop you from moving forward in your life. And if it feels so insurmountable, so big, just figure out little tiny ways to just break it down and take tiny little baby steps to moving yourself forward. All right, everybody. Thanks again for joining me here on the Mike Muldoon podcast. And I look forward to talk to you guys next week. Any questions, concerns, please feel free to email me. You can always go to my website, MikeMuldoonLC.com. You can always see me on Instagram, MikeMuldoonLC. Still not very good on the Instagram thing, guys. Sorry about that. I'm getting there. And on my Facebook, Mike Muldoon LC. Other than that, I look forward to talking to you all again next week. And as always, I got nothing but love for you.